We're back with the Busted Halo Show.
Father Dave has absolutely no trouble taking time off.
Jeez, it was only a couple of minutes, Cardinal Dolan. Here's Father Dave.
And our guest this evening is distinguished film, television, stage actor, and producer Harry Lennix. For the last 7 seasons, he has starred as Harold Cooper on NBC's The Blacklist. Moviegoers know him as General Swanwick from Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and Commander Locke in the Matrix trilogy, and from the Oscar-winning Ray. His Exponent Media Group has produced projects like H4, a fresh interpretation of Shakespeare's Henry IV with an all-black cast, filmed on stage and in the streets of South Central LA. He joins us today to discuss Revival, a retelling of the Gospel of John through a joyful blend of gospel fantasia, Broadway musical, and historical drama. You can tune in to see Revival this Easter Sunday. Welcome to the Busted Halo Show, Harry Lennix.
Great to be with you, Father Dave. Thanks for having me.
How are you? No, this is great to have you and great to see you. I've seen you a couple of times. We share studios over at SiriusXM at Rockefeller Center when we used to be allowed to go in there. And You've been on, I think, on Urban View on Karen Hunter's show a couple of times.
Several times. Actually, I did a one with her the other day. I should have stopped in. I didn't know you were over.
Well, the other day we weren't there because we're doing this thing.
You'd have to check in at each of our places.
Right, yeah.
That's right. Over all the waterfront.
I'll have to say, I may be out on the limb on this because I don't think a lot of people agree with me, but I think the second Matrix is the best one. And that's the one you come in.
Thank you very much. I'll take it.
You'll take it. And also, who doesn't love James Spader? I've been watching The Blacklist since you guys premiered. A great show. That must be fun to do too.
It's a lot of fun, particularly since Spader and Megan Boone do all of the heavy lifting. I just kind of stop in from time to time, but it's great. It's the longest job I've ever had in my whole life.
Really? Well, and in fact, I heard, and tell me if this is true, I heard that this project that we're going to be talking about in just a minute, sort of a passion project for you, which is a double entendre there, called Revival, that you called, was it your agent or your manager said you're ready to retire, and that's when they gave you the Blacklist script?
That's perfectly true. I was actually going to go back to the seminary. I didn't know, what order or what, if it was going to be Catholic or what have you, but I started off my entertainment career, so to speak, as a result of being in the high school seminary.
Yeah.
When Pope John Paul II came to visit us, I was in Chicago.
So where was that? So you grew up in Chicago. Would that have been Mundelein, or where was that?
Well, he came to the city of Chicago, which is actually the second largest Polish population outside of Warsaw.
Sure.
And being Polish. And so that was in Chicago on the south side. At the time, it was the largest high school seminary in the world. So I met him there.
What was it called? With the seminary?
Archbishop Quigley.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Preparatory Seminary, South.
Right. So that's it. So you'd been an actor, and you're like, okay, I'm into the Matrix and Superman. How about I go back to the seminary? That's what you're considering.
I did consider it. I really did. So, but God had other plans, evidently.
It was to star in Blacklist.
Right.
Star in Blacklist.
Right.
Like one sec.
Hang on just a minute.
Show for a little bit, then maybe you can go back.
That's it. So it's an interesting story. Maybe a bit of a joke, but there's this great story about the flood comes. The guy wants to, they want to send a helicopter, a boat, and the police. And so he doesn't get on. He says, God is going to save me. He dies. And he gets up to the pearly gates. And he said, God, I thought you were going to save me. He said, I sent you a boat and a helicopter.
Wait, what are you waiting for?
That was me, bud. I gave you all the help I could.
So I took the boat, and that boat was called the Blacklist. So.
You did. But I've also heard you say that that has allowed you over these last 7 seasons, it's been a long-running show, that has allowed you to work on this passion project called Revival. So when did you get the idea for that? Tell us about that.
Well, it's interesting. So I've been calling myself a Kojalik because I belong to a Catholic. I belong to a Kojic church in Los Angeles. I was the sort of advisor for their.
So what's Kojic? Tell us what that is. What's a Kojic church?
A Kojic church is Church of God in Christ. It's
okay, Kojic. Okay, gotcha.
Church of God in Christ. And so I've been helping out a lady by the name of Dr. Holly Carter, who went to SC. And
there you go, Brett.
How about that, Brett? That's for you. I saw that.
I got the hat on. That and for the movie Love and Basketball that you're in, I thought I'd rep it. You know, it's very
good.
USC based. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. When I'm in Los Angeles, I live very close to there.
Oh, great.
And it's actually on the, that's not too far from the church, from 78th in Vermont, where New Antioch Church is. So that's where revival started. Yeah. I called it the Gospel of John originally. And so, because it's based on the Gospel of John. And so we wanted to do something, but I wanted to use this fantastic sacred music, gospel music, to tell the story in a way that I hadn't ever seen it before. There are two very famous musicals about Jesus Christ. One is an opera, of course, Jesus Christ Superstar. The other is Godspell. But I had never seen music in a kind of popular form,
right,
telling the story of the Passion and the resurrection. So to
interpret it in a culture. When Godspell came out, it felt very 70s, and you go back and you watch it now, and he's got like the rainbow suspenders and the happy faces and all that sort of thing. And you, in the same way that I think, because I mentioned in the intro the project that you worked on about Henry IV, trying to set that, in that case, in South Central LA. And this seems like, I haven't seen the whole thing of Revival, but in the clips that I've seen in the trailer, you do go back and forth from something that seems like it's performed on a stage to actually being in the midst of things, right? So it's not trying to be like, let's go film in like Jordan and make it look like it's Jesus. And it's what we would say, enculturating the gospel. That's what I would call it.
I believe so. That's very, very well observed. We wanted to, Jesus had a dual nature, of course. My Catholic training is always with me. I was just reading Aquinas last night.
Look at you. Wow.
That's right. I'm not a Latinist, I'm sure, like on your level, Father Dave. But that said,
I don't read Aquinas in Latin either. Don't worry about it.
That makes me feel better. But I really wanted to know God better through this music. And I remember, having left the seminary, when I went to Northwestern, I heard this gospel music, and I didn't even know what to think, how to express it. But it spoke to me in a way, and I wanted to use that as an instrument, to use the culture, as it were, as an instrument. A lot of times, even with the Shakespeare that you mentioned, H4, which is Henry IV, we are told as Black people that Shakespeare is universal, but we don't get to see Shakespeare being universal. I believe it is universal.
Yeah.
God is a God for all people. But of course, a lot of Black people have the white Jesus on their
Sure.
mantelpiece.
Yeah.
And we know that Jesus didn't look like Max von Sydow. we know that.
No, he did not.
Or Jim Caviezel.
God bless them. They did a nice job.
They should take God and make him personal to themselves, like every other culture does. But I wanted to do that as a way of as well, to make it something related.
Let me ask you if you know of a man named Oteil Burbridge. He used to play bass with the Allman Brothers Band. Okay. Is that right, Brett?
Yeah, he used to play bass with Allman Brothers. He now plays bass for Dead & Co., which is Bob and Weir from the Grateful Dead.
The Grateful Dead.
John Mayer.
But in his own solo work, a lot of it is, well, all of it is Christian music. And there's a song that he wrote that he talked about. He was on our show. And when he talked about this, I now use it when I'm preaching parish missions, like preaching like a revival and whatnot. And revival, like, so, and it's called Blue-Eyed Savior. And the lyrics talk about the fact when he was growing up, he struggled with that. But one of the stanzas says, well, maybe someday when I grow up, I'll make a movie and Jesus will look just like me and I'll see what people say then. So you should check out that song because it sounds like that's what you've done.
That's what I tried to do. And I think it's important. I think that, the very purpose of Christ is having been sent by God. I don't want to sound like a devotee of Arius here. That God wasn't. But that's I think that he came in the person in sinful flesh, if you will, so that we could relate to him. And I think having somebody who looks like you, as it were, is a way of relating to him.
So the show we're talking about is called Revival. People can see it this Easter Sunday. Will it be streaming or somehow? How might people tune in, Harry, Lennix?
So you can actually get it today. Thank you, Father Dave, for that cue up. That's great.
Tee you up there.
Teeing that up right there. But we want people to enjoy it at their convenience, but
Okay.
we want 1 million people watching it together on Easter Sunday.
Cool.
Because they're going to be, not allowed in church in most cases. So
Right.
we're bring church to them.
Right.
But if you go to EasterSunday2020.org,
Nice.
EasterSunday2020.org.
You snapped that one up before other people.
Good one.
Yes, we did.
Good for you.
Yes. So you can watch it there, or you can go today and watch it on Amazon or on many other platforms, Fandango.
Oh, great.
But we want people to have a sense of communion.
Yeah,
and watch.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that's probably, it might be fair to say that that's one of the things that we've really lost a good amount of. There's lots of ways to be in communion, sacramentally, as we would certainly say in the Catholic Church. One that unfortunately, maybe in some ways for the first time in our history, we've not been able to do with the people of God. And people, I think, are finding some of these new ways, all these apps and the virtual, the Zoom and the Skype and all that sort of thing. People are connecting with their family. I mean, honestly, I've talked to people that I don't talk to in a long time. I'll wait to go visit them. Well, I'll get a flight out there in a couple of months. And now it's like, well, I can just turn. And it's occurred to me as we're doing all this stuff, I could have been doing this. They didn't just invent Zoom or Skype like 3 weeks ago, right? We could have been doing this. So we're finding some ways to create community, but boy, I would imagine there's still a great lack of that around, particularly within the community of faith. Do you find that?
I do find it to be the case.
Yeah.
Some people are refusing to kind of abide by the stay-at-home orders and are going to church and that. But I think that, we have these tools at our beck and call. God sometimes, as we know, again, going back to Aquinas, allows evil to happen so that he could bring good out of it. And I think that these technologies that we have are frequently seen to be somehow at odds with the faith, but they don't have to be. I think we can use them on behalf of the faith and spreading the word and bringing people back to the realization that only through God are we going to be able to.
Right. Well, and this project we're talking about, Revival, which is produced by your production company. You're the executive producer, but you also pick. I like how you pick the good role. You pick Pontius Pilate. You get to play Pontius Pilate. We were noting before, the three of us were talking before you came on, that if you look through your roles, you're usually in charge of something. You're like a commander or a general or something like that. And now you get to be Pontius Pilate.
Yeah. Now this is what some people call circumstance. What I call divine order. My friend Angus McFadden, who you might know from the movie Braveheart. I had a ticket for him to Los Angeles to play Pontius Pilate, and there was a big snowstorm, and so he couldn't come. He was embargoed, so to speak. And so the only person that could learn all those lines in no time flat was me, because I wrote them.
Dude, so you were seriously considering not being in it at all?
I was not going to be in it.
Really?
Yeah, the only person that could do it was me. So I did. And interestingly, in college at Northwestern, I played Pontius Pilate in Jesus Christ Superstar. So
which is the best role actually Judas is the best role in JCS.
That's true. But
okay.
I think that Judas is the best role. I think the second best role is Pilate. He sings some great that when he's counting those 39 lashes and so forth.
It really depends on who's acting these roles. I thought yours was the best. In my experience, yeah.
Harry Lennix is our guest on the Busted Halo show. You may know him from The Blacklist, which just started up another mid-season. I tuned in when they had the new, I'm like, oh, good, coronavirus. I got plenty of time to watch The Blacklist. And it was an episode that you weren't in very much. It was mostly just James Spader. It was like when he's like on an island in a house or something. I'm like, where's all the other characters?
It's an interesting, it seems like, they did it. That's kind of like a ripoff of, I won't call it a ripoff, an homage to 10 Little Indians, the Agatha Christie movie where slowly get picked off one by one.
Sure.
I that episode, but yeah, I was hardly.
Sounds like they did kind of a quarantine edition of Blacklist. Right. James Spader out on an island by himself. Everyone else had to stay at home.
Yeah, right. It's probably a good kind of a model for people to. And by the way, I've been telling people, Brett and Father Dave, that Jesus set a great model of self-isolation by going into the wilderness for 40 days. So.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Well, and right now, if this was only going to be 40 days, I'd take that.
Yeah.
Our little
It's gonna end.
our desert time might be a little longer.
It might be.
So we want 1 million people to watch the film called Revival on Easter Sunday. You can watch it whenever you want. We'll put a link in our radio blog, bustedhalo.com/radio. But I mean, the way I described it at the beginning, so it's kind of like as if it were a Broadway musical, but it's also a lot of other different genres. How do you describe it to people?
Well, I describe it as a mixed media piece, but obviously as a film. You know, we have, in my view, Jesus did a lot of stuff as performance. You know, the feeding of the 5,000 or the 7. Jesus, the first act, his first public miracle was turning water into wine at Cana. Now, I have every belief that he was doing miraculous things before that, certainly being God.
Right. That's pretty miraculous, yeah.
That in itself, being born of a virgin in itself, is pretty miraculous. But that said, we wanted to show the dichotomy. We wanted to do two realities, that this person who is in a performance finds himself having an actual experience of being Christ and going back into time, transcending time. There's actually one scene when Pilate, when you see this, you'll see that I'm actually in a modern boardroom, and my wife in real life plays my secretary. So she comes and gives me a note. We don't see the note.
So wait, your wife in real life is not Jada Pinkett Smith. Oh, I'm totally now. I'm all shimmeled.
That's Will Smith.
Oh, right, gotcha. Yeah.
I'd have to fight Will Smith, and I don't think I can. He kills aliens. I know he can.
Be careful.
Yeah.
But that said,
so she plays it. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's a beautiful lady, but she's not really an actress. But she is now. So I go back through time to the modern boardroom, and I go back and I confront Christ. And I really wanted to show that this confrontation between truth and power is timeless. It transcends time. In some way, it's the ultimate, encounter. Yeah. Power always has to confront the reality, the inevitability of Christ.
Right. We're talking with Harry Lennix, and we want everybody to tune in on Easter Sunday to see Revival. It's a retelling of the Gospel of John. When I think of the Gospel of John, I think that it is fairly long. Is it the entire Gospel of John? How much time are we committing to, Harry?
Well, it's only an hour. It's only an hour.
Okay.
It happens that it's the second shortest gospel, actually. So.
Well, that's true. That's true. So why did you pick John? Because John is very different. You've been in the seminary, you know all this stuff, but not all of our listeners do. Why? Tell me why you selected John's gospel.
I still don't know as much as you do, Father Dave. You finished.
Oh, come on.
But that said, I think it's the most poetic. It's considered supplemental. It has pieces in there that are rife for dramatic interpretation, such as the resurrection of Lazarus. It's unique to the Gospel of John, turning water into wine and celebrating in that way, saying that, that's part of a liturgical an experience. So, the poetry of the book, the sort of almost Gnostic allusions that are in there, I think are more modern than the other three Gospels, the Synoptics. Although I love all of them, so I actually do take some bits of Matthew and so forth.
That's good.
So it's I do a little bit of all of them, but my favorite one, and this is really it's really based in John.
We're talking about Revival, which is available now. We can put a link on our radio blog, bustedhalo.com/radio, so you can find where you can link to it, watch it on Easter Sunday. We're trying to get 1 million people to watch it. Somehow you'll gauge that. They've download counter or whatever. That's our thing. So before we let you go, as I was hunting around your IMDb, which of course you do when you have somebody on. So there was a little list that they polled the users, like the readers of IMDb, for people that they would like to see play Barack Obama in a movie, and you were on the list. I would like to see that. Can you do a good Obama? Can you do the halting speech like he has?
I have every reason to believe, and I wouldn't lie to you, but because I'd have to confess to you right after. But that's it.
That's fine. We can do that.
I knew Obama.
What's that?
I knew Obama in Chicago.
Oh, you did?
Before anybody knew him.
Wow.
And you can hear my friend Sophia Dorsey King, who happens to be the alderman of the 4th Ward, where Obama's mansion is and so forth. But he and I knew each other before he was in politics. And I tell people, and I have reason to believe it, that he's been playing me the whole time.
He's doing a good you. Yeah.
You're
He's
right.
doing a very good job.
He really wanted to be in the Matrix.
That's right. I'm sure he would have traded.
Also, I noticed you actually, in the movie 72 Hours, you literally play God. You're
Hey,
God in that.
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Is it a challenge or a bit intimidating to literally play God? You have to be perfect. You have to be flawless.
You have to be perfect. You have to be the end in itself. But it's so very interesting to me, Brett. I think about this a lot. Where God appears to Moses and Joshua. He's wrestling with people. He appears to Joshua. He appears to Abraham, and they don't even know that that's God that they're dealing with until sort of after the fact.
Right.
He tells them to take off their shoes and so forth. But that said, he comes down in the book of Genesis and looks up at the Tower of Babel. People see he seems to walk through people. So that said, I can be an unrecognizable God at any time.
Well, I gotta say, I'm glad you're this nice and approachable in person, because all the movie roles you have, they're all totally intimidating. They're all commanders and captains and sergeants. I'm like, I start saluting when you go into the room, even on TV. So I'm glad you're this pleasant.
Well,
That's right. Well,
and I'm not sure what would be more intimidating, playing God or playing someone that Morgan Freeman has played, God. Because then you're being compared to him. He's been on our show too, Harry. Morgan Freeman's on the show.
really?
Yeah. We had him. It was before the Zoom technology. He was on like a speakerphone, but still. Yeah.
He's got the pipes. What a voice. You know what I mean? And he's a friend of mine. I love Morgan.
Wow. Listen to that. Barack Obama,
I
Morgan
would,
Freeman.
I would love to hear the conversation, just the audio of you three, all three of your voices talking.
Right. That's
Great.
cool.
Glass is breaking, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So tune in to the Blacklist on NBC. We can see there'll be more episodes before the end of this. No
Yes,
spoilers.
On Good Friday, you can see a brand new episode.
Wow.
And then on Easter Sunday, you can see Revival. It's a perfect.
I don't have to tell you no spoilers, because that show is it's all spoilers. Like every time it's like, wait, who's what? He's heard father, mother, what's going on?
Yeah.
Love it.
Don't ask me, because I have no idea.
No. They don't let you in on it. It's like Darth Vader with the dummy lines. I am your father. What is it? What? So Harry Lennix, thank you so much for joining us. And when, God willing, when our time in the desert is over and you find yourself over at our Rockefeller Center studios doing Karen Hunter show, just knock on our door. We'll drop you. You can drop in.
That's great. I'll come right in. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us. All right, we already have a link on our blog. It is bustedhalo.com/radios to where you can watch Revival. Watch it all together on Easter. We'll be back with some more Busted Halo show for you on the Catholic Channel, Sirius XM 129.